Hey, everybody. Hope you're well. There are a couple of comments I saw that I wanted to respond to. One of them from a friend of the channel, Rick Gray. And I wanted to make absolutely certain that uh, Mr. Gray's question was out front and center and with the appropriate answer, provided. And so that's why I'm posting this. Rick, and this was on the, if you remember the video that I made on the Ken Rosenthal matter, where I had called how Ken Rosenthal essentially does his business in the question as a 21st century journalist who quotes other journalists rather than talks to, subject matter specialists like myself or someone else, like, you know, Guy Hobbs of Hobbs and On with respect to the athletics bond issue, or Mark Arnold with respect to forming a stadium authority, or any one of the other great members of the sports business industry that make this matter of getting stadiums happen in many different ways, either by engineering or even public relations or the press. But, or most important, bond issue development and formation and economic development, which is my background. Anyway, Rick chimed in with this question. He said, Zennie, I could care less about who said what and what was said. I just want the A's to stay in Oakland. Do you see any way that the plan Oakland has with the grants from the federal government would work? Could the A's and the city still work something out? And the answer that I wrote and is in the text here, and I will recite to you, is as follows. I will vlog the total answer. I'm doing that. But the preliminary response, Rick, is no. Again, the time for Oakland A's fans to raise their concerns was when I noted the city of Oakland didn't do the promised tax increment financing zone, which would have led to a large bond issue, which would pay for the sea level rise infrastructure improvements, affordable housing and community benefits, and off-site infrastructure improvements. Instead, because the city admitted to me, this was Mayor Schaff in a July 20th, 2021 interview, that it did not understand how to do tax increment financing when Libby referred to the tools of traditional redevelopment, which actually is what, and then she said in the next breath, we're going to use enhanced infrastructure financing districts, which call for tax increment financing. So it was really a head turning answer, but I digress. She said, she admitted that they didn't really know how to do tax increment financing. That was the traditional tool. Prior to that, which was on July 20th, 2021, as I told you, the Oakland Athletics never got construction drawings. Listen to me. The Athletics never got construction drawings to the city of Oakland. And you need construction drawings if you're going to do a development agreement. You can't do the conceptual drawings you've been seeing running around. Those are not construction drawings, folks. Those are pretty pictures. I'm talking about the drawings that are required to actually build the thing, the ballpark. The Athletics arguably slow rolled that, and they kept doing it all the way through the EIR process. Remember, it was actually noted in one court document that the height of the structure at the time, Howard Terminal, was a guesstimate of roughly 270 feet, but they didn't have the actual drawings to confirm that. And that led into the discussion regarding wind issues and everything else. All those were guesses because they didn't have actual construction drawings. And that argument and that fact was presented early on in 2022. And then it continued through the year. Mike Jacob, the lawyer for the Pacific Maritime Shipping Association, was opposed to the Howard Terminal project and wanted the athletics ballpark built at the Coliseum. And I constantly discussed that. I would say, Mike, where are those drawings? I don't know. The city never made that an issue. Okay, ever. And then, all right, no one picked up on it. I made an issue of it way back in 2021. I was saying, hey, look, it looks like the athletics are the first to blame regarding why this project isn't working. And at that time, that was the case. The city had ample time to get its tax increment financing act together and actually start the groundwork toward forming, and could have been done quickly, an enhanced infrastructure financing district and a public financing authority. But they just slow rolled it. The city, they did nothing. All right. Thus giving the A's a raison d'etre to really start looking at Las Vegas when the Athletics realized that, hey, look, they're going to replace the bonds that we believe we need with grants. And so, and grants alone are fine, but they're not the only way to do a project this size. You need tax increment financing. You need bond issues. Okay. And so, at any rate, I then wrote that the city of Oakland then started to think it could use grants in place of the bond issue. And this gets to your question regarding the grants, Rick. 350 million or 400 million in grants will not pay for on-site, off-site, and community benefits costs. That price tag is 375 million for the sea level rise plus 450 million for the community benefits. All right. Plus, okay, 100 million for the offsite infrastructure. All right. And that gets you to $925 million. 925 million. 375 plus 450 plus 100. 925. Okay. And so you've got, I always like to check my math because I'm always concerned about being wrong about these things because calculations matter. But I'd done that in my head. But 50, yeah, and then 100, 925. I mean, I knew it anyway, but you just like to be sure. So you go to the calculator, check your work. At any rate, $925 million. The other reason I did that is because that's a huge number. And the bigger numbers get, the more your calculations need to be on point. Heck, it's easier to have them on point when they're smaller. But when they get to be big numbers, you need a spreadsheet. You need to make sure that your formulas are accurate and everything else. You need to double check, and you need to assume that everything you've done is wrong unless you've double checked it twice. So at any rate, $925 million. All right. Now think about that. Think about that. To pay for that, you would need $4 billion in budgeted assessed value of new construction, which would, assuming a 4% rate of growth in assessed value down there at Howard Terminal over a 45-year period, would yield you $3.2 billion in tax increment financing revenue, which you use half of that at $1.6 billion. All right. So that would give you enough money to pay for all of that, but only under those circumstances, which means the Athletics are going to be responsible for their end of the ballpark, which is I pegged at $2 billion. And so in order to assure that, you build the ballpark and the event center, and then you need an additional $2 billion of assessed value that is going to occur within the next 4 years. And the only reason only way to assure that is to get the Athletics a development partner. Dave Cobble said he wanted a development partner on my show twice. The city of Oakland never lifted a hand or moved a muscle to help the Athletics get that development partner. What would they have done? They would have issued a request for proposal. They would have had a larger project team. They would have used their tax increment financing zone at least to begin to pull out some administrative money to pay for those costs for that team. The city of Oakland did none of that. All right. And this is 37 years of experience talking. I don't care what anyone else says. Okay. So that didn't happen. All right. And remember that the A's were supposed to pay back under this scenario the 375 million they would get from the proceeds of the bond issue. Okay. And so you got at this point now, all right, you're saying, gee, that's a lot of money. What do you take off? Well, you can remove the community benefits part, but then that would upset those who want the affordable housing part of it done. And I told Dave Cobble on the 4th of April, 2017 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we had our phone meeting that he wasn't going to get Howard Terminal passed without supporting the construction of affordable housing. But see, I pegged that needed 85 million. If the A's had stuck to what I put out there for them, they would have been A-OK. 85 million is a nice doable number, something the city would be very proud of. And then the Athletics could say, hey, look, we really need that tax increment financing district done so we can begin to help you plan for that 85 million affordable housing. We prefer to do it the subsidy route rather than paying for it outright so that you get a high quality set of units, but at an affordable level. Okay. That's the idea. But I digress. So you could remove the community benefits part, but you got to keep the affordable housing. All right. But grants instead of bonds, Rick, was and is a terrible idea alone. And you can combine them. But remember, the plan was to build the ballpark first. And Dave Cobble told me the A's needed a development partner. The city did nothing. Okay. Now I want to address this Rainbow Maid who made this comment that basically, how did he put it here? Here it is. I agree with you talking about Rick about just trying to figure out how to keep the A's here and not looking for who to blame, yada, yada. He says, unfortunately, the person on this channel, he's referring to me, is spending all of his time getting revenge on the city by posting I told you so videos and telling how he should have been put in charge or we wouldn't be here now. And notice how he didn't respond to your question. Actually, I did. He is the happiest person in the world to see the A's leave so he can keep complaining about how he wasn't hired for this position or that position by the city. No, I'm complaining that I wasn't hired to run Howard Terminal Project. Okay. And he says, enough already. To which I say, no. And here is my answer. Are you ready? Pay attention. First of all, Rainbow 1880, and I figured out who you are, and I looked at your purchased YouTube channel, originally in 2013, but repurchased apparently, and then adjusted by you in 2022, just a few months before the mayoral election, which would point to the very real and obvious scenario that you are working for the mayor. Okay. Why else also would you follow every media person who's commented on Howard Terminal? Subscribe to them on YouTube. I've also seen another channel that fits the same description in terms of pattern, all the way down to the messaging about me and how I say, oh, I shouldn't want the job. Let me tell you something. All right. You don't want to think. You just want people to lie to you and baby you and tell you, crap that you want to hear. But that's not happening here, pal. Okay. It is not happening here. Then you whine and you cry about me telling a truth that you can't deal with. You can't handle it. That I am the best person for the job. Libby should have put me in charge. You don't like that? Too bad. Okay. That's what I'm saying to you. Too bad. You can whine and cry and everything else, but too bad. Okay. That you have problems with someone trying to say, hey, they're the best. means that no one should have any confidence in you to do anything because you're too afraid to say that you're the best. You even have to think about that. All right. At all. Okay. It would be logical to believe you have zero confidence in your abilities. You don't want to state them. And so you're afraid of somebody else who does state theirs. Ooh. Keep your weakness to yourself. Okay. A grown man never fears to do a job or to say that they're the best at a job. You understand? A grown man never fears to stare a challenge in the face and take it on and say they're the best. Period. Heck, forget men. Tons of women are the same way. I remember the great Dallas city manager Camille Cates Barnett way back when I was an undergraduate at Texas Arlington in 1985. They made up names for her in the press. They called her a dragon lady and all this stuff. I had the pleasure of meeting her on the elevator when I was an intern to the city of Dallas that year, 85. I was excited and both scared. Why? Because Camille Cates Barnett is the kind of public official who knew her stuff. All right. She was ramrod straight, serious, to the point, and that was that. When she said it, you knew that you could trust it. That's what people expect of public officials. That's what people should expect of public officials. All right. Apparently, you didn't get that message, but I am telling you that's the way it's supposed to be. Just because it isn't that way in every corner today points to the bigger problem we have of government not working correctly. You understand? Of there not being leaders. You understand? Joe Lacob himself said it about us, about Oakland, about our leadership challenge. All right. And what did the great leader of San Francisco, the now late Ed Lee, who was my first client when I started consulting, say? They were aggressive. So if you don't like aggressive people, guess what? Too bad. I am the best. I don't care whether or not you like it. Now, if we had people like you in charge, there would be no space race. There would be no atomic bomb. There would be no New Deal. There would not be cars. There wouldn't be a person walking on the moon. There wouldn't be any of the great things that we've done to move the society forward. Nuclear fission, fusion, anything. The walkie-talkie, the radio, the iPhone, nothing. Because people like you would be in charge. And thank God you're not. Thank God you're not. All right? Keep that weak crap to yourself. All right? There would be no America. All right? Okay. Now we're getting to a question. Hey, Champ asks, any word on negotiations for a lease extension until they leave to Vegas? Not yet. I suspect I'll know more later this week. But I also don't believe that the Athletics are going to stick around longer than the 1 year that the lease is in place for a whole host of reasons. Look, take everything the Raiders went as a guide. And that's why I'm the way I am now. I learned a lot. And what disappointed me was the city of Oakland, the mayor, Mayor Schaff, and now Mayor Tao, did no debriefing about what went wrong, about what went right. Libby simply took her approach with the Raiders, making herself the face of the project, and went right headlong in the A situation with the same playbook, the Libby playbook. Get your face out there, make yourself the face. Who succeeds you? Are you going to, lock in someone? Well, fortunately, Molly Mabern was locked in as project manager, but she wasn't put out there to be the equivalent of, say, Stephen Hill in Las Vegas. And the one time that they did put her out to talk during the term sheet meeting, she didn't do well. I never saw a person the position that I love and relish and others do take that position and approach it as if she didn't want to be doing it. She was actually in Hawaii, if you remember. She was actually in Hawaii. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. She was taking her kids. She was, doing what she had to do as a parent. But she didn't set it up in a way that built credibility, certainty, and capacity that she was the person to get the job done. That's just a fact. All right. So the question is, how badly do you want to win for the city? All right. I remember when I was heading the Super Bowl effort to bring the Super Bowl to Oakland, and it was originally we were supposed to have a meeting with the Super Bowl policy committee on November 2nd of 1999. And what happened was that actually originally we were supposed to have that meeting, I'm sorry, the morning of the 3rd. But what happened was that Walter Payton died, and he died that Monday. And everyone was really shaken up. The meeting was in Chicago at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare, and the owners just wanted to go home real quick. So the meeting was foreshortened by a day. Jim Steed called me while I was having lunch with my father. I hadn't seen my father in 13, 15 years physically. And I had just actually had an accident. I went out. This is something, this is a cautionary tale. I went out and thought I had an agreement with Willie Brown to get all the hotels in San Francisco, which means I would not have had to worry about anything. The bid was in bed. Okay. Went out, went to Harry's South Side. This is 1999. I went to the Balboa for a second, Balboa Cafe in Fillmore and Greenwich. Went back across the bay and then wound up at Merchants. I also had not had a lot of sleep. So between my cocktail at Merchants, food, and everything else, I fell asleep at the wheel. When I woke up, I thought I had turned right for some inexplicable reason. I was actually heading up the ramp of the Nimitz Freeway, and I crashed my car to avoid the car coming to me. Then I called the police, told them who I was. They did a breathalyzer on me, and I wound up in the hospital for about 45 minutes to an hour, a couple hours. Was fine. They took me to North County Jail. I was there for 45 minutes, and the jailer said, "Hey, you're Mr. Super Bowl. I'm going to get you out of here." They did. And I went. I pinned my letter of resignation. Robert Bob was the city manager, then turned city administrator. He did not accept it. It was a lesson learned because they knew that I was undercapitalized. I was doing the work of 7 people, and I was one person. I started the sports commission from scratch. I got approval, nonprofit approval, in 4 months when the city attorney told me it was going to take 2 years. I built a 45-person board, which consisted of such people as Lee Steinberg and his assistant Scott Parker, who himself became a great NFL sports agent. I had Chris Weil on it, who does sports publishing in the Bay Area to this day, and his business partner. They did my first bid book for me, got them paid, and we had a fundraiser. I had to because Robert Bob didn't want to take this to the city council for funding. Why? Because he was certain that they would kill it. Certain. And he was right. I had then Oakland District Council member Nancy Nadell say all kinds of crap about me. I made a big mistake of calling her and letting her know how I felt, and which I don't take back what I said, but because I said it. She was trying to undermine the process and everything. Keith Carson called and said, "Would you apologize to her? Because I heard it." And Keith's a friend, so I did. He was also the county supervisor, one of them. So I did. Um, but I was under a lot of personal pressure because I was single-handedly lifting. And I'm not saying, hey, look, when I say single-handedly, that's lower council. The Tribune said that because she witnessed it. She was the reporter for the Tribune at the time. And those were great journalists. All right. Those were great journalists. I know great journalists when I work with them. I know great journalists when I see them. Great journalists don't run off to other journalists and use what they write. Great journalists write from their own place, from their own analysis, and from their own heart, and from their own sources they talk to who have professional background in that subject. That's great journalism. And that was Laura Counts. And no, I didn't always appreciate what she wrote, but I appreciated her overall body of work and I appreciated her telling the story like it was. I had no help. I had no help. Why? Because Oakland then, like Oakland today, didn't believe it could get the job done. Robert Bob, how I got it was Robert Bob had said to me, "Hey, Zennie," because knowing that Elihu had put me in charge at the behest of the Raiders in laying the groundwork to bring back the 49er to a preseason game. And Elihu, great to work for. Then I got to give him a call, see if he's okay. But at any rate, we were in a meeting, Robert Bob, other staffers, and I. This was February 11th of 1999, getting ready for something called the International Council of Shopping Centers Spring Convention. I was transferred over from the mayor's office of Elihu to be a consultant to the economic development department under Jerry Brown when Jerry Brown was mayor, although Jerry would commonly reach through several layers of bureaucracy to have me come, you know, to his office, which wasn't as often as I wanted. Let me put it that way. That's another story. But at any rate, we were in the ICSC meeting, and there had been a panel put together to go after the Super Bowl that San Francisco was going to lose because Eddie DeBartolo and Ed Moransky used construction cost calculations based on North Carolina projects and not the West Coast, which is more expensive. Completely screwed it up. That completely killed San Francisco's ability to get the 2003 Super Bowl. Okay. So I remember saying to Mr. Bob, I said, "Hey, here's different ways we can get in." I was looking at the angles, and Robert said, "You know what? I don't want to get in the side way. I want to get in because we have a lawsuit. I want to get in through the front door." See, that's old black. That's black old school. Black old school says, don't say, you're an affirmative action hire, which is nothing wrong with that because of the problem. But you also don't want to have that. You want to be regarded as the best. You want to be regarded, you want it to be regarded as a person who belongs to be there because you were the best. And that's what Robert Bob wanted. So when we first started, he put SMG in charge of Sally Roach, but she was not handling things the way she should have been. She didn't want me in charge. And to me, she was acting like she was trying to undermine, and I say this publicly, what we were doing. One good thing she did at the behest of Glenn Mon, who was her boss of SMG out of Spectacor Sports Management out of Philadelphia, was they brought in a guy named Doug Thornton, who had saved, Doug Thornton. So who do I remember that name? Yeah. Doug Thornton was later the man who saved the Superdome during Hurricane Katrina. He was Superdome manager in 1999. I had the pleasure of meeting and befriending the legendary Doug Thornton. Still in touch with him to this day. Great guy. Another giant, from that school of certainty that some of you hate. All right. So Robert, what happened was the city had decided, Oakland, I wanted to be in it. De La Fuente didn't want me to be in it, and neither Lewis Cohen, for reasons Del, that he has since apologized for. Ignacio, but that's fact. So we were in this ICSC meeting, and here Robert's talking about, well, I want to bring Super Bowls to Oakland and everything. And I thought the whole matter was dead. Okay. Because the city looked at the NFL's requirements, like, for example, 24,000 hotel rooms within an hour's drive of the stadium, and thought they couldn't do it. They didn't even bother to count the number of hotel rooms in the Bay Area. We have double that within an hour's drive of the stadium, 55,000 top quality hotel rooms in San Francisco alone. You didn't bother to count it. Why? Because they didn't believe Oakland could do it. That's why. Okay? That's why. When you don't believe something can happen, this is what I'm getting to. When you don't believe something can happen, you subconsciously do things so that it doesn't happen. That's been Oakland's problem for a long, long time with respect to large scale public private development opportunities. All right. So I took that same sheet of requirements. I answered them overnight, well into the next morning, the next day, and the next day after that. And I produced a 300-page response to all the questions. Okay. And I gave that to Robert Bob. And then, well, what happened was I told that out of place, though. When Robert was saying I want to bring Super Bowls in the ICSC meeting we were having on February 11th of 1999, he said I wanted to bring Super Bowls here. And everyone at the table was looking around like, what is he talking about? But I knew. So after the meeting, I went to Robert and I said, hey, where are we in the Super Bowl? He goes, oh, no, you tell me. He said, I said, you want to call Joe Brown? Joe Brown was the NFL's government relations executive vice president. He said, no, you call him. So I did. Now, how did I meet Joe Brown? I met him when I was trying to bring the 49ers preseason game back. Met him over the phone at the behest of Al Casal, Davis' right-hand man, who also told me we were having dinner at Luigi's in Alameda over there. Great, great Italian cuisine. So there's a guy that they're grooming for commissioner I want you to get to know. His name is Roger Goodell. He was executive vice president of football operations. That was 1996 when that happened. Okay. So I'd already had experience, reaching out to the NFL and getting to know the right people by the time the Super Bowl opportunity came up. So I said to Joe, I called him. I said, Joe, where are we? Joe says, you're behind the 8 ball. I need a response to your bid book, and I needed it like last week. Ugh. So I took together everything that I had, and then I put together this 300-page response. And that actually became the basis for our first bid book. Very proud of that to this day. I wrote it all by myself. So determination gets the job done. My next job was, look, I needed drawings for the bid book. I needed the Coliseum drawings. We were having our first meeting, and Mike Silver was there, as well as Monty Poole. Monty Poole even wrote about it later. Not that meeting, though, but just that Super Bowl 39 should have been in Oakland. It was in Jacksonville. But Dina McClain said in that meeting, she was a Coliseum executive director, and where Sally Roach was with the SMG, Steve McFadden stole the drawings. I thought, what? She was whispering this at the table while Steve is right here. Robert Bob, the assistant city manager. We had a whole nice little room in the mayor's office, large conference room. And I didn't believe it. I said, look, you need drawings of the Coliseum for the fire marshal. The fire marshal's not going to let you operate and open the building without drawings. So they can figure out where the mains are and everything, right? So I'm thinking, and I told Robert, I said, Robert, I don't believe that. See, Sally knew that we couldn't do a credible bid without having the drawings. Okay. I didn't believe a word she said. And I went hunting for those drawings. And I found them. A gentleman with HNTB at the time, this was 1999, named Monir Hablu, called me and said, Zennie, I've got your drawings. Wow. Then he called me back 4 hours later and said, Sally Roach says you have to go through to her to get them. I called Robert Bob and said, Mr. Bob, fire Sally Roach, or I will go on Channel 7 and I will have a press conference and I will lay them to waste. Fire her. Robert held an emergency meeting, took her off as the head of the Super Bowl and put me in charge. That's how it happened. But think about what I just told you. That's Oakland's crab barrel style. Someone always trying to pull you down. That's what Sally was trying to do. There are a number of people trying to do that to me. Because they don't want to see Oakland win because of their own psychological issues. There should be a book about it. All right. I wanted Oakland to win. I wanted, in particular, Black kids to see a Black man do the job of bringing the Super Bowl to Oakland as inspiration. Why? Because the number of times Black kids are always being put up as bad in the media then and now. Less so now because of the pressures and everything else in George Floyd. But back then, oh my Lord. Very proud of what I did. I believed I wanted to get it done because Oakland deserved it. Oakland was the shining city on the hill, America's great example of diversity, the place where the Super Bowl should be. That was my pitch. Again and again and again. I laid out that pitch in my first NFL owners meeting cocktail party, the Wilson cocktail party that was November 1st of 1999. And Denise Bartolo York, of all people, said, oh, you're so cute. I'm going to put you in my suitcase and take you around. All right. I've been through enough experiences to make a good book and a good movie. So yeah, I'm very proud of what I did, and I do think I'm the best. And I don't care if it upsets you. So there are the answers to my questions. Good night and good luck. And please subscribe to Zennie62